going to play a little video here for you. It's a trailer for a movie, a documentary called The Principle. How many of you have heard of The Principle? A few people. Have you seen it or just heard of it? Pretty wild stuff. Check out this trailer.
Science has found evidence that Earth is the center of the universe. Science has found evidence that God exists. So why do they tell us we are insignificant?
There's nothing special about humans. There's nothing special about the Earth. In fact, our universe may be one among many universes.
And there's no evidence of planning or purpose in the universe.
The Big Bang assumes that the only thing that exists is the physical world, and there's nothing beyond that.
The truth is, we are significant.
We are in a special place. I do believe that the universe was created by God.
Always question the scientists and their foundations.
They built their careers on this, and it would be admitting a major mistake.
So they set up this satellite and they find out these temperature disturbances throughout the universe were all pointing to the Earth.
Whoa, what is going on here?
This cosmic microwave background is like we are seeing the fingerprint of God, the hallmarks of the Creator.
Man is in a special location for presumably a special purpose.
When I see how barren the other planets are and how bountiful the Earth is, something's different, and we're in just the right spot for it.
We are in a special place. I do believe that.
Science has said stay over in this category here, and you cannot go into the God category because that's going to destroy our science.
Now that is controversial because anyone in the standard cosmology community would not even entertain such a notion.
It's just too perfect to be a happenstance or a coincidence.
This is the movie modern science doesn't want you to see.
If you were paranoid, you'd say there's a conspiracy.
As a matter of fact, you can go on some websites of NASA and see that they've started to take down stuff that might hint to a geocentric universe. I mean, how do you avoid this evidence? They have nowhere to go. It's the moment of truth for science.
So, I'm keeping all options on the table.
You are significant. Get the proof. Spread the truth. Click to download the movie now.
I highly recommend you check out that film. Now, they still believe the Earth is a ball, okay? But if geocentricity is true, we got to throw out everything we think we believe anyway. Everything that we're taught about our cosmos and our Earth and everything else is all based on the Copernican principle of a spinning heliocentric ball. But here you have secular scientists who have no dog in this hunt that I'm talking about right here, looking at scientific evidence saying, wow, this place is not moving. Numerous scientific tests have proven this place is not moving. Okay, so if we're not rotating, that's a big problem for what you think you believe. And if we're in the center, that's another big problem for what you think you believe. So at least, if you look into this, you're going to have to be forced to say, I got to start over again. And I recommend you check it out. I think it's theprinciplemovie.com. They're mad at us in the sort of the flat earth community over here for using their stuff. Because they're not flat earthers. And I'm like, dude, you should be paying us royalties. We have sent so many people your way to watch your movie, you should be paying us. Because what we're trying to say is, whether you believe what I'm saying or not, is get out there and start testing it for yourself. Understand why you believe what you believe, because we've already established everything we believe is absurd anyway. Doesn't matter which worldview you come from, it's absurd. But do you know why you believe what you believe? Or do you believe it just because somebody told you something for your whole life and now you believe it? You know, for me, there's a lot of things that, you walk in first day of school, kindergarten, and there's the globe right there. I was born June 26, 1969. On July 20th, 1969, men were supposedly walking on the moon. And I was sitting on my mother's lap watching it. And as a result, I wanted to be an astronaut. That was my whole dream goal in life. I've got all the original newspaper articles, Time magazine, everything about Neil Armstrong, all those guys. Was obsessed with that stuff. Telescope, I had a 150 power telescope first, then I got a 300 power telescope. It had all kinds of added stuff. I could look at the sun and all kinds of stuff with it. Was glued to the telescope for most of my early years. Joined the military because I wanted to get into NASA. I was a helicopter pilot in the Army. I learned how to fly helicopters because I heard somewhere that the lunar landers, they had to learn how to fly helicopters to be able to pilot the lunar lander. And so my plan was, okay, I'm going to learn how to fly helicopters, follow my dad's footsteps. He was also a helicopter pilot. Following his footsteps, he's one of my earthly heroes, if not my primary earthly hero. Love my dad. So I'm going to fly helicopters. And then I figured I'd transition once I got that done to flying jets and then put in my application and try to get into NASA and get into the space program. It's all I've ever wanted to do. Space, space, space. All that was what I was all about. So if you're having problems with this research and this stuff, just imagine what's going on in my head as I start looking at this. And I watched this movie, and this movie starts breaking down some hardcore barriers and things that we think we understand. If what they're saying and what they're discovering is true, you got to start over. And when you look at some of these scientists, they're kind of realizing the same thing. Michio Kaku, this is a quote from him in that movie. He says, usually in science, if we're off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10, we call that horrible. We say something's wrong with the theory. We're off by a factor of 10. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120th. That is 1 with 120 zeros after it. That's how much they're admitting they're wrong. This is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science. Wow. That's one heck of an admission right there. In other words, you're telling us you're clueless. So why should we listen to these people? That most of the stuff that they're coming up with was derived from theoretical physicists and stuff writing on chalkboards. In fact, Nikola Tesla had something to say about those guys. He said, today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. You can make math say just about anything you want it to say. And most of us don't understand it enough, so we look at this big chalkboard full of squiggly lines, and we're like, okay, well, he's smart, so I guess I'll believe him. And yet you have these same smart guys going, we're off by 1 to 120 zeros on their chalkboard stuff. Wisliam Shatner, captain where no man has gone before Kirk himself, was he's putting together a project up in Canada, some kind of television show or something, and he was sitting down and talking with people like Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was trying to get an appointment with Stephen Hawking, and you know, these prominent guys in science today, to talk to them about time and space and things like that. And he's at one of these Star Trek conventions talking about his experience talking to these guys, and basically I could summarize what he said. He's like, you know, I'm listening to these guys and I'm asking them questions, and he's like, well, so what does your day look like? You know, what do you do? What do you actually do? And he's like, well, you know, it's all in my head. They don't actually physically do stuff. They think about stuff and write it on chalkboards. And William Shatner says in this convention, he goes, science and science fiction is the same thing. It's all in their head.
I've been discussing time and warping time and time-space with some famous scientists. I'm doing something up in Canada which may sell, they may sell that show called The Truth Is in Our Stars. And I've talked to Michio Kaku and David Suzuki, and I'm going in a couple of weeks to talk to Dr. Stephen Hawking. And I tried to get through his book, A Brief History of Time. It's not brief. It doesn't have much to do with history. And everybody I've met who is acquainted with the subject, I'm continually asking, look, I hear space-time all the time. No, space-time, it's space-time. That without space, without time, it's time and space, the space and the time.
Hard to comprehend what it is.
Well, I don't comprehend what it is, so I ask these very important people who are working in the field, what is space-time? And they say, well, the gravitational force takes the photon of light and it bends the photon of light. So without space, without time, you cut the time that comes. I said, well, wait a minute. In the 13, and I said this to Dr. Cochran, in 13.5 years, he says, no, 13.8 billion years. He corrected me by 0.3 billion years. If that photon, I said to him, if that photon of light, that farthest galaxy, takes 13.8 billion years to reach my eye, isn't that time? And he said, yes, but the space-time and the time and the space and the time. And I couldn't understand, my opening sentence to everybody, including, it will be to Dr. Hawking, what is space-time? And I can't. And I know 17 people just raise their hands. I'll tell you about space-time. But it's a concept that I just can't get through my head.
Well, you can understand time, the passage of time.
Are you going to explain to me what space-time is?
Yes. And you can understand the idea that there's space, there's a distance between you and these 6,000 people.
You said that with a measure of pride, too.
Yeah.
Creation of 6,000 people are in the audience.
But it takes a certain amount of time for you to pass from here all the way over to the other side of the auditorium.
Right, that's space.
That is time going, that is time going through space.
You see, that's not what they mean at all. That shows me that you have no idea. I mean, so the guy said, one of the gentlemen said, well, there are 3 dimensions, space, length, width, right? And then you have the concept of time. So something happens within that space, you got time. That's the 4th dimension. Yeah. And I said, well, I get that. Something happens within a cube, and you have time, and then you have length and breadth and width. And I get the, what's the 5th dimension, I said.
That's a fantastic fact.
That was my first thing. So I said, just give me another, because he said there's 11, then he said there's 17, and then I heard lately there's 26 other space
dimensions,
multiverses. No, wait a minute. So I said, well, just give me one other dimension. I don't care about 16 or 17 or 26. What is the 5th dimension? Give me another dimension. And the answer is, we can't conceive of that.
You know, right. So that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Well, it doesn't mean it does exist. You know, so I mean, so I said to Dr. Cochran, he said, it's because he's working on string theory. You know about string theory.
Yeah, and I find that
incredible. But we're not talking about the stuff you wrap a package about, Adam. Yeah. It's vibration of some kind in a string. Okay? So I said, he said, it's like music. I said, well, I understand an orchestra with vibrating instruments. I got that. What do you play? What's your instrument? What do you do? When you get up in the morning, doctor, what do you do? And he says, it's all in my head. I think. I said, well, how do you prove what you're thinking exists? Because it's all theory. He said, well, I've got this very elegant numbers equation, yeah. Very EB divided to 7 to 4. It's all in his head. How do you prove a black hole? How do you know those gravitational waves prove the collision of 2 black holes?
Somehow, eventually, they are able to observe phenomena.
No, they can't observe. It's too far away. It's too theoretical. How do we know what they're saying is true? You know what it really is? It's all science fiction.
So does that make you a skeptic?
No, well, science fiction says, this is a story that I'm making up. And there's this thing called wormholes. And that's a science fiction concept. Although these scientists say there are wormholes. How do you know?
Through your career and your writing and your acting, you've inspired so many people to enter the sciences. How do you balance science with science fiction? They're both the same.
So, according to this chart, we are 96% stupid.